The Shivayogi's fight was too profound. He was to fight the battle of the life on two fronts. He was to fight against the assailing liabilities of the embodied spirit. He had to exit clean and untouched by the bustling sins of life. He was not to lose himself in his joyous zeal to save the drowning souls. He was a strenuous task to rescue the drowning without being drowned. And he was to battle against the disarming darkness of ignorance, inhibiting efforts on the part of embodied spirits to find themselves. He was to help the finite souls to fight the battle of the life for their due disappointment by subjecting himself to and emerging victorious from the ordeal of the flight. The might of a maximum, do as I say, was just an inadequate incentive. The might of the maximum, do as I do, could alone help him to work out the liberalization of the eclipsed souls. Shri Murugendra Shivayogi Swamiji never looked to nor relied upon others to serve his needs. Self dependence was the song of his soul and the practice of his life. There were many who toiled without tiring to have the privilege of serving him, but not one had it with solitary exception of Sri Mrityunjaya Swamiji of Dharwad, who is now resigning resplendent in the splendor of Shivayogi's life and spirit. The Shivayogi served himself faster than there could be left any scope to be snatched by the ever watchful party of his disciples. Depends upon his disciples would do him no good nor his disciples any good. Worse than that, it would deprive him of the value of self help, which alone opens the gateway to the beauty and boundary of the life, and no less to the light of the spirit. It would deprive him the inevitable possibility of seeking the disabandonment of the spirit and the realization of the limitlessness of his finite self by binding it with samakaras, inescapable in the acceptance of outside help, and it would ill serve the mighty mission of his life, which was to live his life as an active example for the living of human life to lead the soul sure into the next and the final stage, the divine life. The glory of his life lay the way of its success to have led groping ignorance of a light to life of the spirit. An auspicious awareness of his duties incumbent upon him by reason of his birth, vouchsafed for the emancipation of the unsolved humanity, marked the beauty spot of his life, attracting even the most unobserving eyes. The Shiva Yogi served himself in all the ways and on all the fronts. His requirements were few, and his zeal and strength of self labor to answer them adequate. And what was served him in due excess of his requirement was accepted by the Shiva Yogi as obscience of the infinite self by finite souls sought to be reached through him, and as unselfish service in satisfaction of impersonal requirements. River Krishna's holy waters brought him a bottom of a drawer and distance of 6 miles every day for the Shiva Yogi's puja, and the ceaseless waves of offering of the ocean of devotion touching the shores of his feet only to recede back into the inner depths of impersonal good were indicating instances of such acceptances on the part of the Shiva Yogi. Prasada played a principal part in the Shiva Yogi's life for its full fulfillment following the full delivery of goods borne by him for fretting humanity. Prasada is food, through food is not prasada. Food sustains the body and is indifferent to the soul. Food feeds the animal in man and starves the unembodied spirit. Food supplies and strengthens what grows and develops to decay and die and leaves the caged, captive soul helplessly gazing on its freedom. Food promotes the well being of the body and threatens to prolong the bondage of the soul. Prasada sustains the soul to poise itself advantageously in its freedom fight with least prejudice to the interests of the body. Prasada, unlike food, has a twofold object to serve the body and the soul. It cannot neglect the body and yet serve the soul. It has to serve the body in having to serve the soul. The body has to live long enough for the soul to free itself forever from the fetters of the body. Human life is the only escape ground for the enhanced soul and the food on which subsists the body as an all important factor in the soul evolution accelerated by its enrichment into prasada by the concentrating contact of spiritual master. The Shiva Yogi's zeal to distribute prasada to his disciples and devotees was absolute and amazing, and his joys of its service were supreme and superb. His joys on their joys of the bliss of his prasada were his joys of their gradual ascent to planes of higher and higher elevation. His devotees, rich and poor, high and low, prince and peasant, were admitted regardless of a rank to swiftly recurring round of his prasada. They partook of it with a relish that revealed the spiritualizing stuff of his prasada, which was to appearance a preparation of a coarse meal but was appetizing even the proud few privileged to the princely delicacy of the dynasty's dishes. The universality accepted tastiness. A very modest meal spiced and served with the affections of a mother is a remarkable phenomenon and constitutes the corroborant parallel to food getting enriched into prasada by the grace of the spiritual master. Great gatherings of his devotees were daily admitted to a satisfying fill of his prasada, invariably followed by enlightening instruction in religious living. Yes, the voice of Basava that echoes through the life of Atthani Shri Murugendra Shivayogi. The spiritual masters, by the proved process of withdrawing consciousness and concentrating upon the self, come to develop occult powers productive of happenings that have much of the supernatural in them and are not intelligible to the range of human experience and knowledge. These happenings find their justification in their use for spiritual purposes. They are justified as essential conditions in the game of divine life and stand condemned, and when they are exploited for acquisition of material gains and the fulfillment of purposes and desires born of ignorance. The more perfect the spiritual masters, the rarer the frequency of their resorting to the occult powers.